Rome, the eternal city, the greatest empire the world had ever known, and at its heart, a throne that could make a man a god, or destroy him entirely. Tonight, we step inside the marble halls of the Palatine Hill. We follow the footsteps of a young man who was once loved by millions. A man the Roman people called their little soldier, their hope, their future. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus. But history remembers him differently. History remembers Caligula. To understand what Caligula became, we must first understand where he came from. Born on the 31st of August, 12 AD, in Antium, modern-day Anzio on the Italian coast, Gaius was the third son of the celebrated general Germanicus and the formidable Agrippina the Elder. His father was beloved across the Roman world. A brilliant military commander, Germanicus led campaigns deep into Germanic territory, recovering the lost eagles of the legions humiliated at Teutoburg Forest. The Roman people adored him, and they adored his family. From a very young age, young Gaius accompanied his father on military campaigns in Germania. The soldiers loved the boy. They dressed him in a miniature soldier's uniform, complete with tiny caligae, the heavy-soled military boots worn by Roman legionaries. That nickname, Caligula, meaning little boot, would follow him for the rest of his life. He was their mascot, their good omen, their joy. But childhood wonder gave way to childhood trauma. When Caligula was just 7 years old, his father Germanicus died under deeply suspicious circumstances in Antioch in 19 AD. Many Romans believed he had been poisoned, ordered killed by the jealous emperor Tiberius himself. The grief-stricken Agrippina brought Germanicus's ashes back to Rome. The people lined the streets in mourning. For young Caligula, the world had shattered. What followed was a decade of fear and loss. His mother was eventually arrested on the orders of Tiberius, accused of treason. Two of his brothers, Nero Julius Caesar and Drusus Julius Caesar, were also arrested and would die. One of starvation, one by suicide, or so the official accounts claimed. Caligula alone survived. He was sent to live with his great-uncle, the Emperor Tiberius himself, on the island of Capri. Imagine it. A young boy, his family destroyed, living with the man widely suspected of orchestrating that destruction. According to the historian Suetonius, writing a century later, Caligula learned to mask every emotion, to smile, to flatter, to survive. He never showed the slightest affection or regard for any of them, Suetonius wrote. It was Capri that forged the man. Or perhaps, it was Capri that broke him. There is no better slave, nor worse master. On the 16th of March 37 AD, the Emperor Tiberius died on Capri. He was 77 years old, and Rome was not sorry to see him go. His reign had curdled in its final years. Paranoid, punishing, suffocating. The people were exhausted. And then came the announcement. Gaius Julius Caesar, Augustus Germanicus, Caligula, was emperor. He was 24 years old. The reaction in Rome was extraordinary. Crowds flooded the streets. Sacrificial animals were offered in their thousands. Contemporary sources record that in the first 3 months of Caligula's reign, over 160,000 animals were sacrificed in thanksgiving. People wept with joy. They had loved his father, they adored the memory of him, and now the son had come. The beloved little boot, all grown up, ascending to the most powerful throne on earth. Philo of Alexandria, a Jewish philosopher and contemporary eyewitness, described the mood across the empire in almost ecstatic terms. Cities competed to send the most lavish congratulations. Caligula reduced taxes. He freed political prisoners. He staged spectacular gladiatorial games. He was generous. He was charming. He was everything Tiberius was not. Rome believed it had found its golden emperor. And then, in October of 37 AD, just 7 months into his reign, something happened. Caligula fell gravely ill. The nature of the illness is debated by historians to this day. Ancient sources describe a severe, debilitating sickness that brought him to the edge of death for weeks. The Roman people were terrified. Citizens prayed at temples across the empire. Some reportedly offered their own lives to the gods in exchange for his recovery. He survived. But something had changed. Those closest to him noticed it first. The warmth was gone. In its place, a cold, mercurial intensity. He had his cousin and co-heir, Tiberius Gemellus, executed almost immediately after his recovery. Then his father-in-law. Then the Praetorian prefect, who had helped him reach power. The Senate, which had celebrated his accession with such joy, began to feel the ground shifting beneath it. What caused this change? Modern medical historians have proposed numerous theories: hyperthyroidism, encephalitis, a severe psychological break triggered by trauma, the accumulated grief and suppressed terror of his childhood, finally fracturing under the pressure of absolute power. Some scholars argue the ancient sources exaggerate, that Caligula was a calculating political operator, whose madness was partly a tool of intimidation. The truth, as always, lives somewhere in the shadows. Let them hate me, so long as they fear me. What followed was 4 years that Rome would never forget. The treasury that Tiberius had so carefully hoarded, reportedly containing 2.7 billion sestertii, was burned through within 2 years. Caligula's spending was not merely lavish, it was theatrical. Deliberately, defiantly excessive. He commissioned vast building projects, the expansion of the Palatine Palace, new aqueducts, the beginning of the harbor works at Rhegium and Sicily. He staged public spectacles on a scale that stunned even Roman observers accustomed to grandeur. His banquets were legendary. Ancient sources described floors covered in rose petals, dishes of exotic imported delicacies, flamingo tongues, dormice in honey, peacock brains. Guests reclined on couches of purple silk. Gold and silver tableware gleamed under thousands of lamps. He famously dissolved a priceless pearl in vinegar, and drank it, reportedly to prove that he could waste more in a single gesture than most men earned in a lifetime. He constructed a floating bridge of boats, approximately 3.2 kilometers in length, stretching across the Bay of Baiae, simply so that he could ride across it on horseback. Ancient sources say he was responding to a prophecy that he had no more chance of becoming emperor than riding a horse across the Bay of Baiae. It was madness. It was genius. It was something the Roman mind struggled to categorize. Tiberius left Rome one of the largest treasury surpluses in its history. Caligula inherited a fortune and spent it with breathtaking speed. In less than 2 years, billions of sestertii evaporated, on spectacles, buildings, banquets, and sheer theatrical excess. What took decades to accumulate was consumed in months. As the money ran out, the cruelty intensified. Ancient sources, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, Philo of Alexandria, paint a picture of escalating paranoia and arbitrary violence. Senators were forced to humiliate themselves at his feet. Knights were made to run alongside his litter for miles. Caligula reportedly had men executed for minor insults, real or imagined. He revived the treason trials that Tiberius had weaponized against his enemies. How much of this was real? This is where historians must tread carefully. Our primary sources for Caligula's rule were all written after his assassination, by authors with strong reasons to please his successor. Suetonius wrote under the Flavian dynasty. Cassius Dio wrote over 180 years after Caligula's death. There is a real scholarly debate about how much of the reported atrocity is historical truth, and how much is post-assassination propaganda. What we can say with confidence is this: by 40 AD, the Senate was terrified. The Praetorian Guard was alienated. The upper classes of Rome felt existentially threatened. Whether Caligula was clinically insane, deliberately theatrical, politically miscalculating, or some combustible combination of all three, the outcome was the same. Rome was heading toward a reckoning. His apparent claim to divine status, appearing in public dressed as gods, including Jupiter, Mercury, and even the goddess Diana, crossed a line that Roman political culture could barely tolerate. The Senate seethed in silence. The guard whispered in corridors. The knives were being sharpened. He lived most disgracefully among his sisters. and at a dinner party he deflowered Drusilla. From that time forward, he treated Drusilla as his lawful wife, and his other sisters as concubines. On the 24th of January, 41 AD, Caligula attended the Palatine Games, theatrical performances held in his honor. He was 28 years old, and had ruled for 3 years, 10 months, and 8 days. As he moved through a covered passageway beneath the Palatine Hill, the trap closed. The conspirators were led by Cassius Chaerea, a tribune of the Praetorian Guard, a man Caligula had repeatedly and publicly humiliated, mocking his voice and forcing him to receive degrading watchwords. According to our sources, Caligula was struck at least 30 times. The first blow fell across his shoulder. He did not die immediately. He reportedly tried to escape. He did not succeed. The Empress Susonia was killed alongside him. His infant daughter, Julia Drusilla, was reportedly killed by having her head dashed against a wall. The Senate, when it heard the news, was caught in a paralysis of shock and sudden, dangerous possibility. Some senators dreamed briefly of restoring the Republic. They debated for hours. But the Praetorian Guard had already made their choice. They found Claudius, Caligula's uncle, a man everyone had considered a harmless fool, hiding behind a curtain in the palace. They declared him emperor. History, as it so often does, moved faster than those trying to control it. Caligula was dead. But the image of Caligula, the monster, the madman, the god emperor who consumed Rome's treasure and its dignity, that image would prove immortal. His successor, Claudius, ordered a damnatio memoriae, a condemnation of memory. His statues were torn down, his coins were melted, his name was scratched from public inscriptions. And yet, historians debate his legacy with a rigor that grows, rather than diminishes with time. The ancient sources, Suetonius, Cassius Dio, were writing senatorial perspectives, shaped by aristocratic resentment. They tell us almost nothing of what ordinary Romans thought, or what the legions on the frontiers experienced. What the archaeology tells us is different, and more complex. His building projects, the aqueducts, the harbor improvements at Rhegium, the expansion of the Palatine, were genuinely beneficial. His early administrative reforms showed political intelligence. Even his extravagance pumped enormous wealth back into the Roman economy, through wages, commerce and spectacle. Some modern scholars, including Anthony Barrett in his landmark 1989 biography, argue that Caligula was neither mad nor uniquely cruel by the standards of his age, but rather a young man with absolute power, no restraint, and no one who could tell him no. That last part may be the most chilling truth of all, because the real lesson of Caligula is not about one individual's psychology. It is about what systems of absolute power do to human beings, whoever sits upon the throne. We stand now at the end of the marble corridor. The torches have burned low. The palace is cold and silent, and there, on the throne at the far end of the hall, sits a young man, alone. His empire stretches from Britain to Babylon. 1 million soldiers march in his name. 2,000 years of history will argue about what he was. But tonight, in this last flickering moment before the dark, he is simply a boy who lost his father too young, his mother too young, his brothers too young. A boy who survived by learning to feel nothing, show nothing, trust nothing. A boy to whom the world gave everything, all at once, with no wisdom to carry it. Power reveals what lies within, and in Caligula, whatever lay within, the world was simply not ready to see it. Rome would remember. And so would history.